We're in Parashat Ekev, and we learn in this parasha about a very special mitzvah that everybody's aware of and everybody does that, and that's the mitzvah of Mezuza. We learn that at the end of the parasha, and for many people the mitzvah of Mezuza is a little bit of a enigma, like it's kind of one of the only mitzvot that has like a remedy in it. Most people they always like different remedies and different omens, but the mitzvah of Mezuzah is unique because it has a certain power with it, and people know it whether they're observant or not. Many Jews are not observant and they still put a Mezuzah on the door because they know that a Mezuzah brings a blessing into the house. And not only blessing into the house, it also brings guards the house. So it's a mitzvah that has a certain power to it that of course raises a big question that we're not supposed to do a mitzvah for the sake of the reward. And if the mitzvah of Mezuzah has a power of guarding, and not only that, it's known to be a mitzvah that brings blessing into the house. And if I'm doing the mitzvah for the sake of the blessing or for the guarding or for the reward, then it's kind of contradicting the fact of doing the mitzvah. So comes two questions that we want to address today, specifically because of this mitzvah of Mezuzah. And like I said, many people that are not observant, they also put mezuzot. I remember when I became observant, I barely was doing anything. I didn't know about anything. But when I moved into a new home, I have to put mezuzah. Everybody knows. I went and bought a beautiful mezuzot to every door post in my house. And I knew even then that I bought expensive mezuzot. So you go now into houses of many Jews, even if they're not observant, there's always going to be a mezuzah on the door. And one way it's an easy mitzvah, all you need to do is buy it once and put it on the door. But people know a mezuzah has a certain power to it. It's guarding the house, it brings blessing to the house. So comes two big questions that we want to address today. The first one is why specifically this mitzvah brings the guarding and the blessing to the house. Why not tefillin? Or why not a talit or books of Torah? Why specifically the mitzvah of Mezuzah brings blessing into the house? And since I know that the mitzvah of Mezuzah brings blessing and guards, brings guidance and security to the house, so if I'm allowed to do the mitzvah because I want to get the reward, I'm putting the mezuzah not only because I was commanded, because I know it guards the house, and if it brings blessing into the house, the question is if I'm allowed to do the mitzvah just for the sake of the reward, and for the sake of that it's going to guard my house. Now, just so we understand a little bit about what's going on in the parasha, this week's parasha, Parashat Ekev, is the third parasha into the book of Dvarim. And the first few parashot in the book of Dvarim is the goodbye of Moshe Rabbeinu. So to say, the will of Moshe Rabbeinu is giving a speech. In Hebrew it's called Ne'um Preda. He knows he's about to die. He knows that's it, changing of the shifts. Now Yeshua is going to take over. And he's giving, so to say, like a will over. Yeah, a farewell, and he's, it's called like more like a will. He's telling them, first he was rebuking them in the Parashat of Dvarim, and then he's giving over, like a farewell speech. And this is the first time that we find in the Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu is saying clearly that the mitzvot it's worth doing them. It doesn't say that, usually he says the mitzvot are commandments of Hashem and so forth. This is the first time that Moshe Rabbeinu actually tells them it will bring you blessing in the physical world. It's good for you to do the mitzvot. A lot of people, when you try to convince them to do a mitzvah, They'll tell you, why should I do it? Why should I put tefillin on? So you want to tell them it's a commandment from God because it says in the Torah. Sometimes you tell people because it's good for you. It's going to give you blessing. It's going to give you a blessing in your business. So here is the first time that Moshe Rabbeinu says to the nation, if you want to be successful in business, then do mitzvot, then keep the mitzvot. And not only that, then Moshe Rabbeinu also asks from the nation to write what he just said and to put it on their heads, which is the tefillin, and to put it on the door, which is the Mezuza. So we find in this parasha that Moshe Rabbeinu says very clearly, very obvious, say you want success. It doesn't say it in that words, it says it in different words. It says, Vayayim shamot ishmol mitzvotai, if you will listen to the mitzvot, v'natati gishmechem b'itam, I will give you the rain in its time, and you're going to be successful and prosperous, and business will be good. Of course, he's not using my words. I'm saying that Moshe Rabbeinu says in clear words, you want success in business, then keep the mitzvot. Very simple. And then of course he tells them, and I want you to write it down and put it on your head, meaning the tefillin, and put it on the doorpost, which is the Mezuza. So this is the first time that we see clearly that Moshe Rabbeinu tells us, if you want success in business, and everybody wants success in business. I don't know anybody who says, okay, let me go into business and I want to fail. Nobody does that. If you're already going into business, you want to be successful. And if most people, they're not independent, they work for somebody, they're employed by somebody, but if you would give them the opportunity to make money and to have a business, most people will take it. People are not business owners because they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the money to invest, or they don't have you need to have a little bit of courage, a little bit of faith. But nevertheless, most people, if you would give them the opportunity to run a business and to make much more money than average, everybody wants that. Who doesn't want to make money? Doesn't matter you're observant, you're not observant, everybody wants to be comfortable and to be able to live comfortable, and some people want to just have a lot of money, but most people says this, of course I want to live comfortable. Who doesn't? We can't kid ourselves. But nevertheless, this is the first time that we see that Moshe Rabbeinu gives us a clear explanation and a clear promise. You want a good business? Keep the mitzvot. Very simple. The mitzvot are good for you. And we see, there's a story in the Talmud, that there was a certain sage, his name was Rav Huna, and he was known to have a lot of, how do you say, vineyards? He used to have a lot of, was very famous, he had a lot of wine. He was a big businessman. On one side he was a great rabbi, a great sage, that learned Torah and taught Torah, but he also needed to make a living. The rabbi also has to pay the bills. So we know in many stories from the Talmud that there were many sages that they were very wealthy. They were wealthy, they had business. Today, if a rabbi has money, then right away he's tagged as a thief, or that he's stealing the money from the organization. So, but nevertheless, I also know in our generation many rabbis that they have business. Why not? Why can't I have a business? I have also kids. I need to feed them. I need to pay my mortgage and tuition, and so one has nothing to do with the other. You know, for many years I had a business. And I became observant, I opened a business, and up until a few years ago, I think we closed it 6-7 years ago, but nevertheless, for many years I had a business, running a business, and I had money. So I opened the business because I didn't want to I didn't want to have the need to be depending on support to support my organization. So I said, I'm going to have my own business and I'll support my own organization. And I don't have to ask for donations and I don't have to depend on anybody. But I know many rabbis in our generation, they have a business. Why not? There's nothing wrong with that. To run a business, there's a lot of mitzvot in it. You have to be honest, you have to be straight, you have to give maaser, you have to give tzedakah. There's a lot of good qualities in running a business. So nevertheless, this sage, Rav Huna, was a great sage, but nevertheless also had a very huge business. And his business, he had wineries. He had a lot of wine. His wine was very, very famous. One day, the story says that in one day 400 barrels went sour. Now imagine what it is for the business, doing 400 barrels. This is thousands of bottles of wine. And in one day they all went sour. It became a big deal. Everybody knew about it. It was famous in the newspapers. News came out. The famous rabbi, all his barrels went sour. So he lost in our equivalent to our time, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Nevertheless, everybody came to comfort him, and so the story says that a few great sages came to comfort him. And it was known at the time, and not only then, even now, that if somebody has some type of a financial loss, then the rabbis told him, listen, maybe you should make an analysis. Maybe you're doing something wrong. Maybe you did something that as a result from that, your parnasah, your livelihood got affected. So that at that period, it was very common that if somebody has something going on wrong in the business, check yourself. Maybe you did some sin. Maybe you did something. And even up until today, if something's going on with the business and there's no good income or something's going on, check yourself. Maybe you did something. So the sages that came to consult him, they told him, listen, look, maybe you did something. They told him, tefashpesh b'maasecha, go through your actions. Maybe you did something. So he says, you know what? You're right. I am doing something that is not 100%. The guy that is running the vineyards, I'm not paying him exactly what's on the contract. And they're like, why aren't you paying him what it says on the contract? So he says, because I know he's stealing from me. I know he's stealing a lot of grapes and wine or whatever it is, and I know exactly what he's stealing from me. So I'm deducting from what I'm supposed to give him what he stole. So the sages told him, listen, you're not allowed to do that. You have a contract with him. You have to pay him exactly what it says in the contract. If you feel that he's stealing from you, or you want to deduct what he stole from what you have to pay him, then take him to the Beit Din, sue him. Take it to the court. You can't take the rules to yourself. You can't say, oh, he stole X amount of produce, I'm going to deduct it from what I'm giving him. You're not allowed to do that. So sure enough, he stopped doing it. He started paying him again back to what was the contract said. And it says that right away, all these 400 barrels, they became good again. It was a huge miracle, and he got all his money back, and everything became good. So we see that this is one story out of many, that when a person observes the Torah and the mitzvot fully, then business is running good. And if chas v'shalom, something's going on wrong with the business, then check what you're doing. Maybe you're doing something. Maybe you're not paying the workers right away. Maybe you're not paying them what they're supposed to get. Maybe you're stealing something without maybe putting too much attention to it, which is called gezel. Stealing is that you have the intention, you know exactly what you're doing. But sometimes you can fail in something similar to stealing. It's called gezel, that you're taking something that doesn't belong to you. Maybe you're not giving the right amounts. It's not easy being a business owner because you are more subject for different failures and sins when you're running a business. If you're sitting all day long and learning Torah, that's one thing. But if you're running a business, you have to be very aware of what's going on, not to steal, not to embezzle, not to cheat, and so forth. So we see from this story, and there's many other stories, that when a person is not following the Torah 100% or not fulfilling the mitzvot, it does affect their business. Now, specifically in the mitzvah of Mezuza, it's not only that we know that it's affecting gives a blessing in business. Also, the Torah says that the person that does the mitzvah of Mezuza, he will gain a long life. Leman yarichun yamecha. The Torah says if you do the mitzvah of the Mezuza, you'll have a blessing in your business, and not only that, long life. Who doesn't want to live a long life? Of course, you want the long life to be with healthy and good. I mean, some people, they live a long life and it's a very hard life. But nevertheless, the mitzvah of Mezuza, it has two qualities: blessing in business and also a long life. Now, okay, again comes the same question. Why? Why specifically the Mezuza? Why not tefillin or kosher or Shabbat? I think maybe if you observe Shabbat, should also give you blessing in business and a long life. Why specifically a Mezuza? What's so special about this mitzvah? Now, our sages explain that, we have to understand a little bit about the mitzvah. Our sages explain that the Mezuza is there to be a reminder. To be a reminder because I go in and out of my house many times in the day. Sometimes I can go in and out of my house 100 times. Some people, they wake up in the morning, they go out of the house, all day long they're outside, they're doing business, and they come back at night. Some people, they go in and out of the house dozens of times. Our sages say you put the mezuzah on the door to constantly remind you that you have to be doing mitzvot. We need a reminder. Not a lot of people say, I don't need to be reminded, I know I have to do mitzvot. But nevertheless, our sages explain that we put it on the door, that every time I go out, I look at the mezuzah, and that should remind me, I have to do mitzvot. If I'm going to business, it has to remind me that I have to be honest, I can't cheat, I can't steal. If I'm going to do any other thing, that I have to be charitable and give charity and acts of kindness. But nevertheless, this is one of the explanations that our sages give, that the mitzvah of mezuzah is a reminder. And this is equivalent to another mitzvah, that is the mitzvah of tzitzit. Also, when it's asked why should one wear tzitzit, because it reminds me that I have to do mitzvot. There's a famous story in the Talmud about a certain sage that he unfortunately was on his way to do a very, very severe sin of forbidden relations. Whatever it is, got into a relationship with a woman that wasn't his wife, and he was going to be with her. And chas v'shalom, do a very severe sin. The story says that when he was taking his clothes off, the tzitzis went flying into his face and smacked him into his face as he was taking his clothes off. And when the tzitzit smacked him into his face in a way that it hurt, he suddenly got his act together. He's like, what am I doing? He was already in the woman's house. And of course, it saved him and stopped him from doing the sin. And this is a famous story in the Talmud, that the tzitzis is also to remind you that I have to do mitzvot. Sometimes you forget who you are. I mean, for especially a person that is not born observant. And remember in the first few years when I became observant, I would look in the mirror sometimes like, whoa, who's this guy? It's not the guy I know. It's a total different person. Suddenly the beard and the yarmulke. So sometimes we forget that we are observant Jews and we have to do mitzvot. Your mind takes you to different places and you need a certain reminder. Wait a minute, what am I doing? What are you doing? So there's a beautiful story that I heard firsthand about a certain woman lived in France, in Paris, and she started to become observant. And like all the famous stories, when people become observant, some spark is ignited and they start going to a Shabbat meal or a Torah class or whatever. I mean, thousands of stories. This specific woman started to become observant, and after a while she learned about the mitzvah of mezuzah. So she put the mezuzah on her door. And for maybe weeks or months, the mezuzah was on the door. Now she lived in Paris. Somebody told her, listen, what are you doing? The whole building here is full of Muslims, and you have a mezuzah on the door. This is not so good. I mean, you can get hurt. I mean, this is not a place to be so Jewish. Unfortunately, in many places like in Paris, people are afraid to show that they're Jewish. They don't. They take yarmulkes off. They put their Magen David in the shirt. I mean, now you really see that people are afraid to show that they're Jewish. This is a true story. So people told her, listen, I wouldn't put the mezuzah on the door. This is can have a very negative effect. So she was afraid and she took the mezuzah off. One day she hears a knock on the door and she opens the door and an old man is standing and he tells her, I'm the neighbor from downstairs and I wanted to ask you a question. And she tells him, okay, of course. He tells her, why did you take off the mezuzah? And she tells him, because, people told me it might be dangerous, it's not a good. So he told her, let me tell you a story. I am a Holocaust survivor. And I was in the camps. And Baruch Hashem, I survived, but I had an issue with God. I was very angry. I was angry at God. I didn't want to do anything. I saw a family die and being murdered, and I had a problem with Hashem. And for many years after that, I didn't observe any of the mitzvot. I lived a life like a non-Jew, just because I was angry for many years. Up until a few months ago, I was very angry still at Hashem. He says, but one day, I live in this building for years. One day the elevator wasn't working, so I had to go up the stairs. And as I'm going up the stairs, every floor I had to take a stop. I'm, an older man. Every floor I had to take a stop, a break, because he's an older man. He couldn't just run up the stairs. So he says, it's the first time that I went through all the floors, and when I came to your floor, I saw a mezuzah. And as I saw the mezuzah, suddenly it hit me. And I started remembering when I was a kid, the house of my parents, we had a mezuzah, and how I used to go with my father to the shul. And he's like, it was very old memory. I was a little kid, but I remembered going with my father to shul and going to the synagogue, and the synagogue had the mezuzah, and my house had the mezuzah, and it brought all these emotions and memories, where I came from. And suddenly I became very emotional, and it caused me to remember that what am I doing? And so many years I was away from the Torah and away from Hashem, and you know what it caused me to do? I started following the mitzvot again. I started putting tefillin again. I put my own mezuzah on, and he's like, why did you take it off? Because of your mezuzah, it reminded me of where I came from. It reminded me to start observing the mitzvot. Now you took it off. So I don't know if the end of the story, if she put it back on or not, but nevertheless, it's just sometimes you see how the mezuzah is a reminder. Just imagine this old man for 60 years, whatever, 50, 60, 70 years, who survived the Holocaust and was so upset at Hashem, which you can't question him, of course. And suddenly this mezuzah of this young lady reminded him where he came from. He maybe was a little kid, and kids, they have all these memories. They don't remember necessarily everything, but they remember certain things. And the mezuzah was his connection to Judaism, and it caused him to come closer back to the Torah and mitzvot. So we see, again, that our sages teach us that the mezuzah is a reminder. Whether we acknowledge it or not, we're walking in and out of the door so many times. Sometimes touching the mezuzah is a habit. It's not that you really know what you're doing there. And some people don't touch the mezuzah, some people do. There's no halacha to touch the mezuzah. Specifically, in Shulchan Aruch, the Bet Yosef, he doesn't mention anything about touching the mezuzah. It's actually the Rama, the Ashkenaz, Shulchan Aruch, that he's the one who says to touch the mezuzah, and you say a few verses. But in Shulchan Aruch, it doesn't even mention anything about touching the mezuzah. But nevertheless, we don't even notice how many times we're walking in and out. Some people, it's a habit to them just to touch the mezuzah. Some people don't even touch it. But never. Maybe if you can keep the questions to the end. So So we see from our sages that the mezuzah is meant to remind us. There's interestingly in the Talmud it says, there's Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, he says any person that has tefillin and has a mezuzah and has a tzitzit, is guaranteed that he will never sin. So again, Mezuza, Tefillin, and Tzitzit, if a person has one of them, he's guaranteed not to sin. Why would he say something like that? Is because the person that is very actively wearing tzitzit and putting tefillin and has a mezuzah, it constantly gives him a reminder that I can't do any sins. Now, we constantly need reminders. Just in the morning we were learning here with the men about this parasha also, and it says in the beginning of the parasha that we have to guard the mitzvot and we have to do the mitzvot. Ushmartem ve'asitem. What's the difference between guarding and doing? So guarding, he explained, we were learning from the Noam Elimelech, that guarding, it refers to the thought, that I have to have the thought of the mitzvah. Doing is the actual mitzvah that I do. If I put tefillin on, if I eat kosher, whatever it is. But it also has to be always the thought behind it. And the verse continued, and this is in our parasha, that if you guard and you do the mitzvot, then Hashem will fulfill His part. What is His part? The covenant and the kindness. Briti ve'chesed. What is the covenant? The covenant that Hashem says, I will allow you to do mitzvot. Hashem allows me to do mitzvot. We think that I'm doing Hashem a favor. When I do a mitzvah, I think somebody needs to clap their hands to me. I don't understand that Hashem is doing me a favor, that He's actually giving me the opportunity to do a mitzvah. And the kindness that Hashem gives to us, we might not notice it, but all day long Hashem is bestowing us so much kindness, we just got used to it. And we tend to complain that we're missing things. And we tend to complain to Hashem about the things that I don't have, instead of thanking Hashem 20 million times a day for all the kindness that He does to me. So, I have to acknowledge on a daily basis that when I'm doing a mitzvah, then I have to thank Hashem for giving me the opportunity to do the mitzvah, because He's allowing me to do it. If He wouldn't allow me, then I would have such a yetzer hara and I wouldn't do any mitzvah. I always say the same thing. Before I do a mitzvah, doesn't matter right now what the mitzvah is, but before I do a mitzvah, I say thank you to Hashem with my own words. Because most people, they have a yetzer hara and they don't want to do this mitzvah. And I'll give you one mitzvah that most people, they don't like doing it, is to say Birkat Hamazon. People will drive half an hour to the pizzeria that sells pizza that is mezonot, just not to say Birkat Hamazon. And if you give somebody to eat something, a roll or whatever, bread, they'll tell you, is this a motzi? Yeah, not so hungry. And maybe an apple. So this is one of the greatest mitzvot we have in the Torah. And people go out of their way not to wash their hands for bread. And chas v'shalom, I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not blaming or making fun of anybody. I'm just making a point that you have one of the biggest mitzvot in the Torah is to wash your hands, say hamotzi on a piece of bread, and eat. We just learned that literally last week's parasha in Vayetchanan. V'achalta, v'savata, u'verachta. You should eat, you're going to be full, satisfied, and say a blessing. Takes you 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 9 minutes if you read it very slow. People sit on Facebook for 3 hours watching nonsense. We're watching cats dancing and all sorts of junk for 3 hours. But for 10 minutes to say Birkat Hamazon, no, I'll eat an apple. I'm going to eat a mezonot. I never was able to understand that. I understand that because I also sometimes get lazy and I'm tired and I don't want to and wash my hands. But really when you're thinking about it, Hashem is giving you $1 million check. It's not even $1 million check. It's $1 billion check. And you're saying, I don't feel like going to the bank today? This is kind of the same of idea. That somebody's going to come and tell you today, here's $50 billion check. No, I really don't feel like walking all the way to the bank, standing in line. I don't want to. This is equivalent. So, why people have such a yetzer hara to do this mitzvah? Because you need a merit to do this mitzvah. This is this covenant that Hashem says, I will give you the opportunity to do a mitzvah. So when you don't have a Yetzer Hara and you're about to say Birkat Hamazon or put tefillin on or whatever it is, you have to say to Hashem, thank you for allowing me to do the mitzvah. I'm the one who's going to gain from it. Nobody else. I'm not doing Hashem a favor. Hashem doesn't gain anything or loses anything if I put tefillin on or if I don't put tefillin on. I'm the one who's going to gain from that for eternity. So I have to thank Hashem with my own words. Thank you for allowing me to want to do the mitzvah. And I know thousands of men that they have tefillin, it's in the closet, they don't put it on. They have a Yetzer Hara. So a man shows up to shul and he puts tefillin on. I thank Hashem, thank you, Baruch Hashem, thank you for allowing me to want to do it. So that's why it says in the Talmud that when a person has tefillin, Mezuza and tzitzit, he's guaranteed not to sin. Why? Because he's constantly involved in the mitzvot. It's constantly a reminder. We constantly need reminders that Hashem is amazing to us. Most people, they cry and they complain all day long and they whine, my wife is hard, I don't have this, I don't have that. You know, the secret of getting an abundance is appreciating what you have. If you just practice it, put it into action. Instead of whining that you don't have money, you don't have your other half, you don't have health, this is annoying, he's doing this. Instead of that, just thank Hashem all day long for what you have. You'll see that your life will change right away. The problem is that we just whine all day long and we complain. So that's why when a person is constantly appreciative of what he has, then Hashem wants to give him even more. So next time, instead of complaining that you don't have something, then thank Hashem for 2-3 things that you do have. I told you that not too long ago I met this young man. I was on one of my trips, I was in London, I met a young man that he came to get some advice. And he told me, listen, really, I have everything. I have money, I have a wife, I have kids, I have business. I literally, physically I have everything. I'm healthy, but I'm very unhappy. I'm just unhappy. And I told him, as long as you don't follow the Torah and the mitzvot, you'll never be happy. It doesn't matter how many Ferraris you have on your driveway. It doesn't matter. You'll never be happy. Because if your soul is not happy, you will never be happy. So my simple advice to you is just follow the Torah. Just do a few mitzvot. I'm not telling you to become overnight the chief rabbi of the world, but start putting tefillin every day. Give some charity every day. Maybe go to the synagogue once a week. And you'll see, you'll start feeding your soul, and you'll be happy. And I told him, and another thing is that you're not appreciative of what you have. So I want you to do once a day, take a break, 5 minutes, take a little piece of paper, and start writing down all the good things that you have in your life. I have 2 legs that work, I have my eyes work, my fingers work, I have teeth, I can chew food, I have a car, I have a business, I have a wife, I have kids, Write down all the good things that you have and thank Hashem for what you have, because you have a lot. And you know what? When you're going to be appreciative of what you have, it by default will cause you to be more happy and more content. We constantly look at what I don't have and we complain and we whine and just be appreciative of what you have. And trust me, thank Hashem for the good things that you have. You'll see He's going to want to give you much more good things. So, just to conclude what we were talking about, so we were concluding in a way that a mezuzah is a mitzvah to remind me about the fact that there's a Torah and then I have to keep the mitzvot. Very simple. Now, there's another reason why a mitzvah is so unique. Because we know that a mitzvah, it brings protection to the house. And not only that it brings protection, it's guarding the house. We know that. We know that for a fact. It's not only giving us a blessing in the business. We just mentioned, and there's many places that we didn't mention, the Mezuza actually brings you a blessing in Parnasah, in your livelihood. But we know for a fact that a Mezuza guards your house. You know, on the Mezuza it says a few letters, not on the parchment from the inside. If you look at the Mezuza from the outside, you see Hashem's name. Shin Daled Yud. And Shin Daled Yud is the acronym of Shomer Dlatot Israel, the guard of the doors of Israel. And we know from many places that the Mezuza guards your house. Now, there's a famous story about the famous Tana, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. He was the sage that wrote the Mishnah. Very, very special individual. He was known to have many, many friends, what we call in our generation connections. You want to move things around, you need connections. In this day of age, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And if you know the right people, you move things around. So he had a lot of connections. One of his good friends, one of his connections, was a certain man. His name was Artvan. Artvan was the king of Persia. And he was a good friend with him. So one time, the king of Persia sent him a present. And he sent him a very, very unique and precious jewelry, like a stone, something, a diamond, whatever it was, very, very precious. That's how it is, in those days. To show friendship, we would give each other very expensive presents. Okay, so he gets in the messenger this expensive piece of jewelry or whatever it was. So he says, okay, what am I going to give him back? What am I going to give the king of Persia? He's a gazillionaire. What am I going to buy him? I have to buy something. This is how it works. He sends me a present, I have to send him a present. So he decides to send him a mezuzah. Takes a nice mezuzah, wraps it up, and sends it with a messenger. A week passes and he gets a notification from the king. What is this? I'm sending you this precious jewelry that is worth millions and millions and millions, and you're sending me this piece of parchment with some ink on it and some letters? That's our friendship? That's how you're valuing my present? So Rabbi Anava was not a fool. He was a very wise man. And he told him, listen to me, my dear friend. The present that you sent me requires to be guarded. Now I'm going to have to spend money and ways to guard what you gave me. What I sent you will guard you. So he completely changed it around and says, what you send me needs to be guarded. Why what I send you is going to guard you. And needless to say that the king of Persia was very happy with the present. But nevertheless, the story says that after a while, the daughter of the king got very, very sick. And she was literally on her deathbed. And what they did is they took the mezuzah that Rabbi Anava sent him and they put it under her pillow, and she got cured. And he understood then that this little present is not some cheap omen. It was a very powerful thing. A lot of people, they have different customs. A lot of people actually walk around with mezuzot with them. I actually read a long time ago, a lot of people, when they used to go to the Lubavitcher Rebbe for a blessing or for questions, when people were sick, or he would always say, check the mezuzot. And I read a long time ago a letter that somebody sent to the Lubavitcher Rebbe that they're suffering from migraines. And the answer the Lubavitcher Rebbe gave is to walk in the pockets to walk with a pocket in a mezuzah in the pocket, like for the power against the disease. So I do know that a lot of people, they don't only hang a mezuzah on the door, they walk around with it, they put it in the car, they put it in the bag. I read many places that people use it as a power of protection. So nevertheless, we know from so many different stories and sources that the mezuzah is a protection. There's a very famous story about Youkilis. If you read the Chumash, there's a translation from Aramaic and to Aramaic, and it's translated by a certain individual called Youkilis. Now, this is a very deep translation. A lot of it is very mystical. It's not the regular Aramaic. It's not the Aramaic you find in the Talmud or the Zohar. It's a little bit different. Nevertheless, when you read the translation of Youkilis, you would think that he's a son of a prophet. But nevertheless, Youkilis is a convert. And not only is Stam a convert, he was the nephew of the king of Rome. He was the nephew of Adrianus. And the story says that he was working for the king, needless to say, destroyed Yerushalayim. And for whatever reason, he was looking to get more spiritual, and he wanted to become more closer to Judaism, and he wanted to learn Torah. Now he said, if he's going to go now to his uncle and tell him, I want to go to Yerushalayim and learn Torah, his uncle will kill him. So what did he do? He told him, listen, I want to learn a new business. I want to learn some business. And I'm asking for you to give me a year or two off so I can go and learn business. I want to go into business. Okay. So he says, okay, no problem. For business, I will let you off. And I will give you also an advice about business. He says, okay, what's your advice, my dear uncle? And he says, always buy merchandise that is very, very cheap, that it looks like it's worthless, but that has very good potential. So you buy it when it's cheap, when it seems like it's worthless, but in the future, it will turn to be a great potential to be very, very profitable. So, of course, Onkelos smiled, and he says, that's the advice, this is Judaism. That's what I needed to hear. Now, Judaism, and especially then, Judaism wasn't so ranked so high. It was right after the destruction of the temple. Who wanted to be close to Judaism? And he says, this is the merchandise that right now doesn't seem so expensive, but it has great potential that in the future it will become extremely, extremely valuable. And nevertheless, he's like, oh, that's the advice that I needed. That's what I needed to hear, that I'm actually investing in something that doesn't look so great right now, but in the future will be a great investment. So the story says that 2 years later, Andrianos starts looking for his nephew. Where's my nephew? He said he's going to learn business. He disappeared. And he quickly found out that he's in Yerushalayim, that he converted, and he is learning Torah, teaching Torah. So of course the uncle wasn't so happy about that. So he sent a group of men to come and take him, a squad of soldiers, go and get my nephew. They come and get him. Onkelos was not a fool. And he started talking to them, and he convinced them to stay with him. Talked to them a little bit about the Torah, a little bit about God, and he convinced them, made them about Tshuva. Okay. The uncle also says, okay, I'll send another squad to come and get him. But he told them, listen, my nephew is very sharp with his tongue. Don't talk to him. Just bring him to me. Don't engage into conversations with him. The last squad that I sent, he sweet-talked them, he told them about the Torah. I don't know what he said there, he got them confused, convinced, they stay there. Just go and get him, don't talk to him. Okay, so they go to get Onkelos, and he starts talking to them, says, listen, your uncle, the king says not to talk to you. He says, no, I just want to give you some words of wisdom. He says, okay, what's your words of wisdom? So he says, when there's an important man like a minister, then you have to hold the torch of light for him. Now we have electricity, we don't know what it means. In the olden days, if there was somebody important, somebody would stand there with a torch that he will have light to read or to eat or to write. So he says, when a person is very important, like a great general, then somebody has to hold the torch for them. And even if he's more important, let's say he's a Caesar, then even somebody more important has to hold the torch for them. And if he's a king, then everybody has to hold the torch for that person. But you know that the nation of Israel is so special, and then when they were in the desert, the king, the master of the universe, was holding the torch for them. And he convinced them how sweet and special the Torah and Hashem is, and he got them also on board. And another squad became observant. Okay, this time Adrianos says, okay, we can't mess with this. This time he sends another squad, and he tells them, don't even talk to him. He asks you, he talks to you, don't just grab him and bring him to me. This squad was a little bit more aware of what's going on. They come there, they grab him, he starts talking, they're not even listening, they're completely ignoring him. They take him out, and as they're taking him out, he just stops, whoa, stop, what's going on? They're lifting him up, he's not even walking. He puts the hand on the Mezuza, he kisses it, and he smiles. They're like, why are you smiling? Why are you smiling? He says, well, I thought your king told you not to talk to me. You're right, we shouldn't talk to you. But why are you smiling? You want to hear why I'm smiling? So he says, this is the difference. The king that you work for, he needs you to guard him. And he's surrounded with guards. But in Judaism, I am guarded by the king. The king is around my house as he's guarding me. And of course, another squad went down and he got them also on board. And the fourth time, the king says, okay, just leave him there. I'm not sending any more men to take him. So we see that the Mezuza is a guard to us. The Mezuza is guarding us. You put it on the door. It guards us from all sorts of bad things and spirits and so forth. And it's literally guarding the house. So why? Why would the Mezuza guard the house? Why not Shabbat or candles or challah or tefillin? Why specifically the Mezuza? So it says in the Zohar that the Zohar says, write my name and put it on your doorpost. That's what the Zohar says about the Mezuzah. Meaning that Hashem and His name is what guards the house. Now, if you look in the Mezuzah, I told you already, not on the front part of the parchment. When you roll it up and you hang the Mezuzah, it says 3 letters, Shin Daled Yud. And it has to be turned into that the person that walks in can see it. It has to be not turned to the doorpost, rather to the other way. And the acronym of Shin Daled Yud is Shomer Dlatot Israel, the guard of the doors of the nation of Israel. So the Zohar says, write my name, Hashem's name, on the door, and that will be a guard for you. Now, another interesting way of looking at it, the word Mezuzah, the numerical value of the word Mezuzah is 65, the Gematria. You have a Mem is 40, Zayin is 7, another Zayin is 7, Vav is a 6, and Hey is a 5. Together brings you 65, the numerical value. Hashem has many different names. Yud Kei Vav Kei, Shin Daled Yud, Elokim. One of the most common names that Hashem has, we say it every day, is the Shem Aleph Daled Nun Yud, Ado, and then we say Nai. And the numerical value of that name, Aleph Daled Nun Yud, is 65. So the word Mezuzah, not only that on it has the name of Hashem, Yud Kei Shin Daled Yud, the word Mezuzah is the same numerical value of Hashem's name, Aleph Daled Nun Yud, Ado, and then Nai, what we say in all the brachot, and we say it every day. And that's where the power of the Mezuzah, that's why the Mezuzah has power to guard, because it has the name of Hashem in it. And, you know, in our day, in our generation, you can relate with it, because in many places there's the Mafia that they do as a business. They sell you protection. That's how they call it. And just the other day, somebody sent me a shocking video about the farmers in the south of Israel, how the Bedouin are like a mafia and they're charging protection. And if you don't pay protection, they destroy your fields, your crops. They stole his tractors. And so this was the video that was like promoting the awareness. But nevertheless, we see in many places that there's a mafia. And the mafia, they come to your business and they tell you, you have to pay us 10%, 20%, it's called protection. And we're going to protect you. So I always say a story that when I was out of the army, I was constantly into making money. My mind was all the time, how am I making money? And I had all sorts of businesses, and I was doing very well. I knew how to make business. So one time I figured out a very good business. I was maybe 20, 21 years old. And I used to sell flowers in the corner store, in the junctions. Now I went to the place to buy the flowers. I had a few girls, we used to make all the bouquets, all the nice wrapping and everything. Then I would go and stand on the big corner junction. And I know it sounds like a nothing. I would make thousands of shekels in hours. I'd have buckets on the street Friday afternoon, everybody wants to buy flowers. It was a big junction and they had like a little bay where cars can stop. I would sell thousands of shekels worth of flowers. My friends always used to make fun of me. What are you doing with flowers? I was like, so, but nevertheless, it was a very good business. It would cost me, I don't know, like 3 shekels to make the bouquet, and I would sell them for 50 shekels. And they would go like hot buns. And anyways, I would make a lot of money. I'm talking about like 25 years ago, I would sometimes make 5,000 shekels with a couple of hours. And I just knew where there's a good opportunity to make money, and I wasn't afraid of working hard or being laughed at. My friend would laugh at me. We were selling flowers on a junction, and I was like, in Hebrew we say, "Tzachak mishet tzachek acharon." The one who laughs last has the last laugh, however they say it in English. But nevertheless, I made a lot of money. So this business was going on very well for a couple of months, and it was growing and growing, and people knew I'm already standing there. Now I developed it. I had bouquets for 50, bouquets for 80, bouquets for this. I developed it, and then I started taking people's names. I started to take orders the day before, and I make extra. And I was like already seeing myself going public with this after a couple of years. But I was 21 years old and I'm making a lot of money. That wasn't even like a main income. It was just for the weekends. And it was only a few hours work. Thursday I would go get the flowers. Thursday afternoon till the evening the girls would make all the bouquets. I would give them some whatever they got paid. Friday morning we sell the flowers. That's it. Friday afternoon I'm done. Going out to the beach and counting my money. So, okay. Things were going well, very, very well a few months. Till one day I get a visit. I'm standing in my, we call it a basta, in the middle of the street. All my flowers are there. A car stops. 2 guys walk out. Yeah, no, not the IRS. 2 guys, sunglasses, suits. They come to me, looking around. What is this? I tell them this is lilies. What is this? These are roses. So one of them kicks the bucket and says, "What are you making a joke out of me? What is this?" I tell him, "What are you making a joke out of me? I'm telling you, these are flowers." So he tells me, "You are on our turf. You can't sell anything here." Now I was young and a fool and stupid and told him, "What do you mean I'm on your turf? Get out of here." Not knowing that this is the Mafia coming to tell me you're in my territory. And if you want to sell your flowers, you have to give us a commission. I'm not giving you anything. So I, in my chutzpah, I took out a bouquet and I said, here's the commission, give it to your wife. So he took it and smashed it on the floor, and I still was still arguing. And he was telling me in simple words, "You are on our territory. You want to sell something here, you got to give us commission. If not, you're going to be out of commission." So the business venture had to stop at this point. The business venture had to stop. But nevertheless, why am I telling you this whole story? Because the Mafia, they sell you protection. And now, if you pay your fee, whatever it is, your ransom, then if somebody comes to bother you, you just say the name. And you say, "No, I know this person." "Oh, you just said the name." No, it's okay. You can do whatever you want. So, the name, you just have to sometimes mention the name. "Oh, no, he works for so-and-so. No, don't mess with this guy right now." So same thing here, lehavdil, not to compare, is the Mezuza. The Mezuza has Hashem's name on it. A person, an entity, a spirit, a demon comes, he sees Hashem's name. No, here, this person, I don't want to mess with this person. He has protection from the master of the universe. So the Mezuza has a power of protection. Why? Because it has Hashem's name on it, and it has Hashem's name in it, and needless to say on the parchment has Hashem's name. So that's why the Mezuza has such a power of protection. But now we're coming to the next question that what we started the class, which was actually initially the first question. Since I know the Mezuza is a force of protection and it's protecting me, am I allowed to do the mitzvah for the sake of the reward? I mean, we know that we're not allowed to do we shouldn't do a mitzvah for the sake of a reward, right? I mean, our sages tell us you should never. I mean, there's a mission that says, "L'olam ya'asok adam b'torah shelo lishma." A person has to first of all, we are taught by our sages that a person should not do the mitzvah for the sake of the reward. So here, if I'm putting the Mezuza and I'm saying, okay, the Mezuza is a protection, then I'm actually doing the mitzvah for the sake of the reward. So comes a question, am I allowed to do that? So in order to understand that, I have to understand that when it comes to doing to learning Torah and doing the mitzvot, it says that our sages say that a person should always do a mitzvah even if it's not for the sake of the mitzvah. Why? Because at some point he will do it for the sake of the mitzvah. לעולם יעסוק אדם במצווה שלא לשמה, שמתוך שלא לשמה יבוא לשמה. A lot of people say, listen, I'm not really doing the mitzvah for the right intention. Should I still do it? Yes, you should still do it. Even if you're not doing it for the right intention, but from doing it from the wrong intention, at some point you will do it for the right intention. On the other hand, it says our sages say that if a person gives, I mean, the way it says it in the words of our sages, if a person gives a rock for charity, because it says hanoten sela letzedakah. The verse says hanoten sela letzedakah al menat le'atzil et chayei bno harei tzadik gamur. If a person gives a rock, like maybe a precious stone or like a coin, but gives something to tzedakah for the sake for his son to live, his child, then he's considered a tzaddik gamur. So I see here in one way our sages are telling me do the mitzvah even not for the sake of the mitzvah. On the other hand, our sages are telling me if I'm giving, so to say, charity for the fact, for the merit for my son to live, if chas v'shalom the child is sick, then I'm considered a tzaddik gamur. Now it kind of contradicts itself. Because the first part, what our sages say, just do the mitzvah. Don't worry about the intention right now. As long as you do the mitzvah, one day you'll do it for the right intention. There's a famous story that a certain individual, a wealthy individual, he came to the Baal Tanya and he told him, I have a serious problem. I like doing a lot of charity. I give a lot of money. I open my house is full of guests. Shabbat, there's huge meals, and I give a lot of charity. So the Baal Tanya tells him, so what seems to be the problem? This is a very good thing. To give so much money and charity and feed people. So the man tells him, you know what's the problem? Is that I'm not doing it for the sake of the mitzvah. I like to be acknowledged. And they write my name in the newspapers that I give a lot of money. And everybody says how generous I am. And I like that. I'm doing it for my own ego. I'm doing it for my own pride. And I don't know what to do. So the Baal Tanya tells him, the poor person that comes to your table and eats, does he leaves your house satisfied? He says, of course. He says, that's what matters. You fed him. He's full. Who cares right now? You did it for the right intention, not for the right intention. You want your name on the wall. You don't want the name on the wall. The person was hungry. He ate. He's satisfied. That's what matters. You did the mitzvah. That's the matter right now. First, as long as you do the mitzvah, later on start developing it to do it for the right intention. So, first of all, we have to understand that when it comes to a mitzvah, just do the mitzvah. Don't start becoming sophisticated now if you're doing it for the right intention. Neither one of us are in a level of doing a mitzvah in the right intention. First of all, just do it. Somebody once asked me, how come all the mitzvot, before we do them, we say a blessing? When I put tefillin on, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'aniach tefillin. You light candles, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'adlik nerot. Why, when we do one of the greatest mitzvot of charity, we don't say a blessing? Most of the mitzvot, we say a blessing. Tzitzit, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'it'atef b'tzitzit. All the mitzvot, there's a blessing coming there. If it's lulav, al netilat lulav. How come when I have to give charity, I don't have to say, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu latet tzedakah. So I told him, imagine now somebody sitting on the street and he's telling you, can you give me some change? I'm starving. So you say, wait a minute, the bracha? Oh, I didn't prepare well for the bracha. I have to go to the mikveh. first. Then I have to say the morning prayers. And then I have to prepare. Wait a minute, wait here a few minutes. Let me get prepared. In the meantime, the person will die. Just give him the money already. Just don't need to prepare too much. So what if you would fall on somebody very Hasidish? Will tell him, wait a minute, I have to, before I say a bracha, I have to have the right intentions. I have to learn for a whole hour, go to the mikveh, prepare myself. The person will die out of hunger. So I told him, the tzedakah, we don't say a blessing because Hashem doesn't want you to think too much. Just give the money over. So when it comes to a mitzvah, first of all, on one hand, our sages tell me, just do the mitzvah. Don't start getting into too many calculations if you're doing it for the right intention, for what intention. First of all, do it. First of all, worry about doing the mitzvah. Later on, it will already come to do it for the sake of the mitzvah. On the other hand, we learned that our sages tell us, don't do a mitzvah for the sake of the reward. So I'm kind of like bouncing in between. So the conclusion is, you're allowed to do the mitzvah for the sake of the reward. You're allowed to do that. But this is considered that it's not a chassid. It says, if you remember that our sages said that if you give charity to save the life of your child, you consider a tzaddik for that. But a tzaddik is a very high level, but we know there's one level higher than a tzaddik, and that level is called chassid. Chassid is not necessarily a person that has long peot and wears a shtreimel, the fairy hats. This is not necessarily a chassid. A chassid is a person that goes beyond the letter of the law. The term in Hebrew is misha mitchased kono, that does something that he doesn't need to do it. Goes beyond what Hashem tells you to do. And I'll give you one example out of many. A man wears tzitzit. I don't have to wear tzitzit. Only if I wear a four-cornered garment, then I have to put tzitzit on. But if here I have a jacket, it doesn't have corners, you see it's round. I don't have to wear tzitzit, so I don't need to. But nevertheless, I still put on myself a garment that has four corners, that all day long I wear tzitzit on me. All day long I have tzitzit. I even sleep with the tzitzit. Why? Because it's a mitzvah. Why shouldn't I do it? It's a great mitzvah. Why shouldn't I have the meter counting every second that I wear the tzitzit on me? Then I get to wear a mitzvah. I don't have to. But nevertheless, it's a holy garment, and it gets me connected to Hashem, and I'm attached to a mitzvah. Why shouldn't I do it all day long? This is an act of chassidut. And I'll give you another example. You see, in our generation, many people, they grow their peot very, very long. Now, there's no mitzvah to grow the peot. The mitzvah is not to shave the peah. That's the mitzvah. It's a precept. You're not allowed to cut the peah. This is called a peah, the sideburn, and you're not allowed to cut it. But since it's a mitzvah, then many take the extra act and say, hey, it's a mitzvah, why shouldn't I grow it long? I should make it a beautiful mitzvah. Why shouldn't I'm not going to not cut it, I'll just grow it very long. So this is, again, an act of chassidut. That's where you see that specifically the majority of ones who have long peot, they belong to different chassiduyot. So why? Because I don't have to do it. It doesn't say anywhere in the Torah that I have to grow long peot. It just says in the Torah, don't cut your peot, don't lashchit, don't shave it. But if I'm already growing it, let me grow it long, that it will be nice and long. It's a mitzvah. Beautify the mitzvah. So there are many acts that I'm not required to do, but many people still go out of their way and they still do it. And this is called the act of chassidut. So to do the mitzvah for the sake of the reward, you can do that, but it's not an act of chassidut. Or to say it in simple words, it's not doing the mitzvah in perfection. If I want to do already the mitzvah, at least let's do it in perfection. This is called to go beyond the letter of the law. And I always give the same example that in my last birthday, then my kids, they get very excited before my birthday. They buy different presents, they prepare things. So the older kids, they have money, so they buy a present. And the younger kids, they don't have money. So last birthday, my 3-year-old, she sat down for probably hours making all these paintings and little hearts and little flowers, and it came with explanations. And then there was like a stick, and it had like a circle and like 2 sticks coming out of it. And she was like, that's you? And I was like, that's me when I was very skinny. You know, the one stick and then two sticks like that, and two sticks and a circle, and like she had a few curls. She was like, that's you. And then there was another stick next to it, and she was, that's me. And there was I had other explanations, and this flower, and this in the tree, and I was so touched by the fact that she sat there for hours and doing these little paintings, and then she glued it and stapled it, and it looked like one big mishmash, but whatever it was, it came from her heart. And on the other hand, the older kids, they bought presents that were worth something, and they didn't get me so emotional and excited like the piece of paper that had little hearts and flowers on it. So you see that sometimes the simplicity and the excitement and going beyond what you should do, that's where it hits the soft point. And the presents that all the kids gave me were nice, but that's the present that I more valued. It wasn't the money. It was the fact that she could have taken 5 shekels out of her allowance and buy me whatever, I don't know, a card. But she made it herself. And this is this act of Chassidut. That Hashem says, I'm not asking much, I'm asking this. But when you go out of your way and you do something greater than what Hashem asks you, you melt His heart. And that's the beauty of this Mezuza, is that first we said that it has the power of protecting. This is one part of the Mezuza. But when we question, am I allowed to use the Mezuza for its protection? Then because I'm not doing it for the protection, I'm doing it for the mitzvah. I'm benefiting from the protection. But nevertheless, I'm doing it for the sake that I want to do the mitzvah. And therefore, there is no problem whatsoever to use the mitzvah, even though I know that I'm going to benefit from its protection. Some people might say, hey, wait a minute, maybe I should not do the mitzvah because I'm going to benefit from it. No, you're allowed to benefit from it, but we have to understand that even in a mitzvah, not too long ago somebody came and told me, can you help me buy a mezuzah? And I told him, okay, what type of mezuzah you want? He's like, what, there's kinds? I says, of course, you can buy a mezuzah for $20, which will be cheap and small, and you can buy a mezuzah for $500, which will be big and special, and a quality parchment and quality ink, and the scribe is a very unique scribe, and of course there's different levels. So I remember when I became observant, I once shared the story. It's a long story, but you can find it online. But the short version of the story, that's my experience with a mezuzah, is when I became observant, then I didn't know anything. I didn't have a rabbi, nobody guided me. I just had my experience, and I had a friend who told me what to do. Okay. And I really was not doing much. I used to put tefillin on, I used to say morning prayers, I didn't mix meat and dairy. Then I moved into a new home, and I was like, okay, I'm a Jew, I need mezuzot. So I decided to go and buy mezuzot. I drove to the city, I lived in Chicago, and I wasn't observant at all. But walking into the store, I felt very uncomfortable, so I put a yarmulke on, just to walk in. And I walk in with denim pants and a nice short sleeve shirt, and I have big tattoos on my arms, so I pulled the shirt. I felt very embarrassed that the tattoos are showing on the hand, and the t-shirt was short. But nevertheless, I walk into the store, I put a yarmulke on, and I say, hello, I need a mezuzah. And I was like, okay, if I'm already doing a mitzvah, I'm doing it all the way. And I had 8 doorposts. Usually people buy 1 mezuzah for the front door. I was like, no, I have 8 doorposts, I need 8 mezuzot. At the time I had a lot of money, and I was like, give me the best mezuzot you have in the market. Not some cheap, give me the most expensive mezuzot you have here. Okay, so I bought my 8 mezuzot, and it was so funny because they kept looking at me, and my shirt kept going up, and I kept pulling the shirt down, and I felt so embarrassed. But nevertheless, okay, so I go out of the store with my new mezuzot, and I start driving home. Now, I'm driving home, and it was Friday afternoon, and I was like, you know what? I don't think it's the right time to move into a new house on a Friday. It's Shabbat. It's probably bad luck. You know what? So I call my landlord, and I tell him, listen, is that okay if I move in on a different day? And he's like, yeah, you can move in whenever you want, of course. as long as you start paying from today, I don't care when you move in, just start paying from today. I was like, okay, no problem, so I'm going to move in on Sunday. I said, I'll take a hotel, who needs the headache? I was like, it seems to me like bad luck to move into a new home on a Shabbat. So I took a hotel room, and he tells me, you have to bring me the first month rent in a money order, and the security deposit also in a money order. Okay, where am I going to get a money order right now? I'm driving on the highway, so I see a big sign for Western Union. I get off the highway to some neighborhood. I was probably the first Jew that ever stepped foot on that neighborhood. Not such a great neighborhood in Chicago. And okay, I'm standing in line there in the Western Union. Probably don't. Wait, so I'm standing there in the Western Union. There's like maybe 300 people there, a long line. I'm just standing there waiting to buy my money order. Suddenly I hear somebody screaming from the back. It's like talking very loud, and I just turned around to see who's the person that's making all this commotion. And as I turn around, this guy screams to me, "Shalom!" I'm like, what? And he comes to me, starts hugging me, "Shalom, I'm Jewish too! I'm also Jewish!" And he's hugging me. I'm like, shut up, you're gonna get us killed here. What are you talking about? Relax. And he's hugging me and he starts screaming, I'm Jewish too! My mom is Jewish! My grandmother's Jewish! I had a bar mitzvah! I'm like, why are you telling me all this? And in my mind, like, how does he even know that I'm Jewish? I mean, I know the nose is pretty big, but how do you know that I'm Jewish? Suddenly I remembered, the yarmulke. I forgot the yarmulke on my head. And he starts telling me his whole ancestry, his aunt and his this and his bar mitzvah. And finally he tells me, hey, do you smoke? And I'm like, yeah, why, you want a cigarette? And he's like, no, you want to quit smoking? And I'm like, yeah, I actually do. Now I was a very, very heavy smoker. I used to smoke like 3 packs a day of Marlboro red Marlboro. I was cigarette after cigarette. And maybe a month before this event, one time I was driving on a highway and I started getting pain in my heart, and I literally thought, that's it, I'm getting a heart attack. I started seeing white dots everywhere. I pulled the car off the highway. Now my grandfather died when he was in his 40s from a heart attack. My grandmother from a heart attack. We have a lot of heart diseases in our family. And I was a heavy smoker, and my mom kept telling me, you're going to die from a heart attack, and then I'm getting these pains in my heart, but real sharp pains. Okay, anyways, the pains passed. So a month later, he's telling me, you want to quit smoking? And I'm like, yeah, I actually do. So he tells me, come tonight to this hotel, you're going to quit smoking. And I was like, what don't I just come to the hotel? Well, what is it? So he tells me, ever heard of quitting to smoke through hypnotism? And I said, yeah, I actually did hear about it. So he says, come today to this hotel, you're going to quit smoking. And in my mind, I was like, it's a Friday night, it's Shabbat. I told him, does this cost anything? I don't want to do a business transaction on a Friday night. He tells me, give me $40. $40? I gave him $40. That night, I was like, you know what? I'm going to walk there. I'm not going to drive there. And bear in mind, I'm not observant at all. I'm like zero observant. I walked to this place. I walk into a room, was in a hotel, like in a conference room, maybe 30, 40 people. Comes a doctor up on the stage, starts giving over a lecture about what happens when a person smokes, what happens to the body, what happens to the blood, what happens here, that, and he shows all these slides. And then comes the hypnotist. He goes up on the stage and he starts the hypnosis. And then, he wakes everybody up. He tells, don't look at your watch. How long do you think you were out? People say 5 minutes, 6 minutes. And in my mind, I'm like, yeah, it felt like 5, 6 minutes, 7 minutes. We were hypnotized for an hour and 15 minutes. Anyways, I walked out of that door and I never touched a cigarette since then. 17 years, almost 18 years, I don't smoke anymore. And I walked out of the room. I went to the restaurant in the hotel where I was staying, and I was sitting in the smoking zone. I think they don't have such things there anymore. But I would sit in the smoking area, and I'm holding the cigarette in my hand, and I don't want to smoke. And when I used to go to sleep, I used to sit in bed, smoke 3-4 cigarettes, to to finalize the day and go to sleep. Then I would wake up in the morning, I wouldn't even open one eye, already was a cigarette in my mouth. And I wake up in the morning, and I want to smoke. I'm looking at the cigarettes. And I didn't want to tell anybody. I was like, nobody will believe me. So for 2 months, I didn't tell anybody anything. And my sister came to visit me around that time. After a week that she's with me, she was like, what's going on? When you're not smoking? I told her, no, I quit. She was like, no, come on. I told her, well, you just saw yourself a whole week. I'm not smoking. Nobody could believe. I was such a heavy smoker. Nobody believed that I quit. When I went back to New York to visit a friend, he says, okay, let's step out to have a smoke. He's smoking and smoking, and he tells me, why aren't you smoking? I told him I quit. He's like, nah, you? I said, yeah. He goes to me like, like this on my pockets, looking if there's a box. And I told him, no, I quit smoking. Nobody could believe. And up until today, I never touched a cigarette. 17 years. It's almost going to be 18 years. Now, this is my personal miracle story how I quit smoking. Now, when I tell it to people, people say, okay, well, wow, what a luck that you stopped in that place to buy the money, or then that person met you. And I say, this is not luck. This is the reward that the Kadosh Baruch Hu gave me because I was so excited about the mitzvah of Mezuza. I wasn't observant at all. It was maybe 3 months after my experience. I used to put tefillin on in the morning, and I used to not eat meat and dairy. That was my level of observance. And it was so important to me to have a Mezuza, but not only on the front door, on all the doors. And the best of the best. I was like, I'm not saving money here on the Mezuzot. Give me the best that you have. And I saw the reaction. I was so excited about the mitzvah of Mezuzah that Hashem right away gave me a reward that there was no chance based on nature that I would ever quit smoking. I was like, I'm going to die a smoker. And Hashem says, oh yeah? I'll show you what's the power of a mitzvah. And against all odds, I was able to quit smoking in such a miraculous way that up until today, now I smell cigarettes from a mile away, I get nauseous. And I give it only for the zchut of the mezuzah, only because the importance of the mezuzah and how everything was around it. And that's how I learned on my own flesh, is that when you go beyond the letter of the law, you go beyond what Hashem tells you. Hashem tells you A, and you says, no, I'm going to make it a beautiful A, not a regular A. I'm going to go all the way. And you melt Hashem's heart. That's where you really climb to a higher level, that you do everything beyond the letter of the law. This is called a chassid. And a chassid says to Hashem, whatever you tell me, I'm going to do much, much more. You're not required. You don't have to do it. But you do it because you want to. And you know what? Not that we're doing it for the sake of getting a reward, but when you go the extra mile, the Kadosh Baruch Hu, you melt his heart. He will give you anything that you want. Just go that extra mile. So I have a personal relationship, so to say, with the Mezuzah, because I saw that I was so excited to do a mitzvah. And that's how I was when I became observant. Every mitzvah was so exciting. But specifically the Mezuzah, I saw how it not only guarded me, how it blessed me, how I saw such a huge abundance, not necessarily in physical. I didn't need the money here. It wasn't about the money. The abundance, this blessing that I got is that I got my freedom. Looking back, I was like, this is one of the worst habits a person can have, is smoking. It's just disgusting, it's costly, stinks, you're dependent on some stick. It's like, I couldn't how could I smoke 15 years? Now then, cigarettes were cheap. Now cigarettes is 40 shekels a box. 40 shekels a box! When I used to smoke, it was like a shekel and 15 agorot. So, but it didn't penetrate into my mind. How could I smoke for so many years? So here you see the power of the mitzvah, and specifically the power of a mezuzah. And the Kadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm going to give you the mitzvah, you already can choose if to go the extra mile or not. But we learn from here that not only that the mezuzah has a power of guarding you, the mezuzah has a certain power in it that gives you a certain abundance. And it's a certain mitzvah that the Kadosh Baruch Hu says you are allowed to benefit from its reward because you're doing it for the sake of the mitzvah. The fact that you're getting the reward, that's because this is part of the mitzvah. We're allowed to do the mitzvah for the sake of the reward, and not only that, we have to to beautify it. So go and buy yourself beautiful mezuzot. Make sure all your doors in the house have mezuzot. And needless to say, this is a very unique mitzvah that we have as a nation of the Jews. Everywhere you're driving in different neighborhoods, you see a mezuzah. Oh, here's a Jew lives here, a Jew lives here. Sometimes you drive in different neighborhoods, you see one house has a mezuzah, one house doesn't have a mezuzah. This is a symbol of pride to our nation, and we have to carry it proudly, that we have a mezuzah on our door. We carry Hashem's name on our doors. And needless to say that the reward is that He guards us and blesses us, and we get this abundance. So I like not only seeing the practical part of the mitzvah, but also seeing the beyond the practical, that we have to learn from that we have to do the mitzvot beyond what Hashem tells us to do. It's not just to do it according to what the book says and says that's enough to me. Go the extra mile. The Kadosh Baruch Hu says, you want me to go the extra mile with you? Then you go beyond the letter of the law with me. And this is how it works, measure for measure. You go beyond the letter of the law, the Kadosh Baruch Hu also stretches and He goes way beyond what you deserve to get. B'ezrat Hashem, we should merit to constantly be involved in mitzvot and constantly carry the name of Hashem with us. And needless to say that we should also all be blessed with an abundance of physicality and health and wealth and happiness and all the good things that Hashem knows how to give us.